What's up, core reporters? It's time for a recap of what went down on last week's episode of Teen Mom Next Chapter. Per usual, I watched the episode using Philo, and I've got a link in the description box of this video that you can use to sign up for your own free account and get to watching. Okay, so listen, first of all, I gotta tell y'all the episode was boring. I rushed to watch it. I felt so far behind, and when I watched it, I was bored out of my mind, okay? So McKenzie and the kids were impacted by a major hurricane, and their father, Josh, never once called to see how the kids were doing, which is not surprising, but it's also rather disturbing to think about. It's sad to see her talk about how he never cared about her or the kids, considering they were married for a long time, and they've got 3 of them. Why do people like that get married? Why do people like that have children? Just be alone, have your flings, and that way you don't hurt anybody and you don't have to conform to a lifestyle that is just not meant for you. McKenzie announces to the kids that she is well within like the threshold to start trying to actually get pregnant. And her daughter Jaxie tells her that if she has another boy, she will never see her again. You don't have to worry about me. You do not have to worry about me. And I found that to be absolutely hilarious because same. And what started off as a really cute scene turned into a rather sad scene when all of the kids except for Gannon talk about Josh ghosting them and making false promises about showing up for their big moments. You know, you've got Jaxie, you've got Bronx being like, I never hear from my dad. He never reaches out to me. Like, he doesn't take my calls. He doesn't return my calls. And then Gannon is over there in the corner talking about, oh, he contacts me. I don't even have to worry about reaching out to him. He contacts me. I felt like, damn, that wasn't a nice way to say it. Like, that's really harmful to the kids, but I don't blame him. He's a kid. He's not thinking like that, right? And I find that more to be a fault of Josh. Why are you only reaching out to one child and not the other? It's like, it's really unfair. And you could see the severe hurt in the other children's eyes, especially Bronx, the youngest son. I'm glad that they've got Cassano there stepping up to be a father figure to them, but there is still that kind of like missing piece of the biological parent that they all struggle with, even Leah, with Christina being as good of a stepmother as she is. One thing that always sticks out to me about Mackenzie's bedroom scenes is that wood sticking out of her headboard. The way I would wake up every morning, banging my head on it, go to sleep every night, face down, banging my head on it. No, not like that. Get your mind out of the gutter. But seriously, what is that? Why do you have a shelf? Oh my God, every time I see it, my forehead hurts just at the idea of banging into that thing. Anyway, you guys, Briana and Stella, it's time for another crossover. So we've had Cheyenne doing 2 crossovers. She had one in Vegas with Ashley. Then she did another one in Indiana with Jade. And now this time it's Briana driving 2 hours from her neck of the woods to Mackenzie's neck of the woods to get the girls hanging out together at Mackenzie's cheer gym. And they were doing the little TikTok dances, the tumbling, everything, which was really cute. And meanwhile, the 2 of them, Briana and Mackenzie, they spoke about how life was going, the hurricane and everything like that. And Briana wanting to tie her tubes and asking Mackenzie for advice because Mackenzie had her tubes tied. And now she's in kind of like the regret portion of that as she attempts to get pregnant. Bri says she's tired of having kids by deadbeats and doesn't want any more. And the funniest thing about and it's not funny, haha, but funny, weird. Like the peculiar thing about Briana is that she never once talks about raising her standards. She's like, look at these guys. I don't want anyone else like this knocking me up. Just don't interact with people like this. How about that? Like, go find yourself a man with drive, right? With a job, with something going for himself, like stable, everything. And you'll be far less likely to end up in the situation that you wound up in, right? And again, you don't have to have kids though. So I'm happy that this is a decision that she wants to make for herself nonetheless. But Mackenzie's like, listen, like I did that thinking the same thing. And now look, here I am with a person who really, really wants to have kids. And I'm going through all of this to get pregnant, right? And so meanwhile, Mackenzie, she airs out her son, Gannon. And again, I'm not going to say exactly what it is that she is accusing Gannon of talking about, or, the inappropriate actions that we learned about him trying to discuss with, his little girlfriends and stuff. But it's very vulgar and it's very adult content, right? And so she talks about it. And, it's the 3rd episode of her talking about this and putting that sort of private information about her 13-year-old child's ex-life out there. And oh, it's making me cringe, you guys. It's making me cringe. It's a lot, you guys. I don't think it's appropriate to put this sort of information out about your 13-year-old child. I really don't. So she also asked Briana about the idea of getting full custody of her kids from Josh because he's not an involved parent at all. To which Briana says, listen, And I tried to do the same, especially with Lewis and stuff. And the lawyers told me, let sleeping dogs lie, leave well enough alone. If they're not bothering you, trying to like come after custody, this or that, like just leave it alone and coast until like adulthood, and you'll be fine, because this might stir up some issues. And all of a sudden the dads will pretend to want to get involved and stuff. Speaking of that, I did hear a story about that this past weekend. When it's not my friend, but a friend of a friend. He's dating a single mom, and she was living in a different city here in France. And the dad was not around for the child after like 1 year of life. Like after a year, he pieced out, and the child is now 4 years old. And she's in a relationship with this guy that she used to date back in the day. And he lives here in Paris. And they've decided after like 2 years of long distance dating that she's come to live in Paris with him. All of a sudden, the dad that was not around for 3 years of the child's life, when she notified him that she's moving to Paris, all of a sudden he's fighting for custody, right? So I do think that Briana gave really, really good advice in that regard. Although I do understand why McKenzie would want to have that full custody, just to have that comfort as well, for the ease of traveling, things like that as well. And mind you, Briana also said, listen, that's just what happened to me, but you should talk to a lawyer on your own and see what they say. They might tell you something different, okay? One thing that I thought was really weird about this was the fact that McKenzie then went on to recap this conversation with Cassano in front of her daughter, Jaxie. I said, girl, this is not a conversation that's appropriate to be having in front of your child, but okay, listen, a lot of things you've been doing, with these children this season is I'm giving you the side eye over. So why stop now, right? Why stop now? Meanwhile, you know what? Maybe that's why this episode was so boring. It kind of really only revolved around McKenzie and Briana, and they don't really have that much of anything going on this episode. We saw Ashley. She was talking about like some of the misfortune she's going through, like involving school and stuff, but it was nothing really interesting enough to note. The only thing that was interesting about her scenes were the colored contacts that her friend decided to wear. Every time she looked at the screen, I was like, oh, jump square. Okay. So anyway, yeah, like now to the other side of Florida, Briana talks to her mom and her sister Brittany about her decision to tie her tubes. And Roxanne is really just trying to push the idea of doing birth control instead of something as drastic as tying her tubes. She claimed that no doctor in his right mind would ever tie her tubes. Bri said, nope, you know what? I've already got 2 kids and I'm in my 30s, so it's not that outrageous of a thing to ask. And she doesn't like birth control because of the reactions that she has to it, which I think is reasonable. And Roxanne really tried to guilt her. Here's my thing. I don't think she's coming from a bad place. I think she's just, she's got like more life under her belt than Briana, right? So she's seen things like this, right? And just looking at McKenzie's situation, she really thought she was done. And, McKenzie has real life health issues, right? As another impediment to having more kids. Yet even despite that, she's putting her life on the line to go have another kid, by her fiance, her boyfriend, technically, right? Like, so I think that Roxanne is thinking from that perspective. Like, you know what, like you're still young, you feel this way now, but you've got lots of time to meet another guy. And maybe you'll feel differently when you meet a guy who is stable, who is caring, who is loving, and who does want to have a kid with you, and you'll want to have a kid with him. Like, you really never know. So Brittany was really upset about Roxanne's advice and stuff. And I understand why Brittany's upset. Listen, I saw all 3 sides of this. I think all of them were like right in their own way. And I do think that Briana needs all of these perspectives in her mind as she makes this decision. I don't think it's in the best interest of people to have like just yes men around them. I think everybody needs to, maybe chat when it comes to something as radical as that. I do think it helps to have people around you who are not too scared to challenge some of your ideas and stuff, like at the end of the day, it's her call, right? It's her body, her choice, as Brittany ever so elegantly put it. But I do think that nonetheless, it's great to have different POVs surrounding that. So, good luck to her in whatever decision she decides to make with all of that information, all of those perspectives that she's got now, right? So anyway, you guys, that was literally it that I found noteworthy in that last episode of Teen Mom Next Chapter. I'm sorry, but it was a flop. It really was. It was a flop. Anyway, let me know what you think. Per usual, I do also have that link in the description box of my video that you can use to go ahead, sign up for Philo, and watch Teen Mom Next Chapter online as well. Let me know what you thought about the episode. I'll be in the comment section chatting with you per usual, and I'll see you in my next recap. Take care, you guys. Have a great day. Bye.